From Unacademy to Ashoka University, it seems it's the season for teachers to either resign or be terminated. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. In the last few days, the country has been agog with what's happening in our education space. You had a teaching coach advising students to vote only for educated politicians. He was a coach with Unacademy, the edutech company. On the other hand, you have the prestigious Ashoka University, where a paper written by an economist making the argument that there was possibly electoral manipulation by the BJP in closely contested seats in 2019 created a furor. After the university distanced itself from the research paper of the professor, the concerned professor actually resigned. Now there is an uproar in other departments of the university. In fact, the faculty is threatening a mass exodus. What do we make of these two controversies? Is it a case of social media hashtags and overly thin skins deciding what happens in the education space? Or is there a merit to what has happened in both of these organizations and universities? Let's introduce our guest today as we look at the Unacademy and the Ashoka University controversy. Joining us is Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, who's been taking a very scathing position, at least online, on what has happened in Unacademy as well as Ashoka University. Also joining us is a teacher herself and a writer and an author, Dr. Ruchika Sharma. She's a historian as well as a professor. Thank you for joining us. And also joining us is Professor Ashwani Mahajan. He's a leader of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch. We also hope to have with us very soon Zafar Sareshwala, educationist, who seems to be having connection problems, joining us, but we hope to have him very soon in the program. Now, let me start with you, Sanjay Hegde. I saw your tweets on how a professor, Karan Sangwan, with Unacademy, you felt very strongly that he should not have been removed. He was basically urging students in his online classroom to please vote for educated politicians only. Now, Sanjay, in a country which has had historic inequality, not always had a free access to education for all, the idea of an educated politician only is a debatable one. That aside, the organization is making the argument that his comment verged on politics and they don't want politics in the newsroom. Why do you disagree, Sanjay?
Well, it's not that they do not want politics in their academy. Many if you are teaching political science, if you are teaching civics, if you are teaching in the law, politics is an integral part of it. How do you teach constitutional history, for instance, without the politics behind the constitution, what came in at what particular point of time? Or if you were to discuss what happened preceding the emergency in 1970, how the Indira Gandhi government at that point of time wanted a committed judiciary. So you cannot distance politics. And here was an innocuous comment, a comment which none less than President Rajendra Prasad made to the Constituent Assembly right in the beginning of the Constitution, the day before the Constitution was signed, that he felt that the Constitution made an error in not prescribing educational qualifications for lawmakers. You can go to the Constituent Assembly debates and look that up. Now, if a teacher were to take a position as part of teaching law, now can you start censoring it? Can you now go into the classroom, into the virtual classroom, and say, this is the kind of content that we will censor? The essential part of any education is the ability to free minds, to examine even that which cannot be stated. I think it was Aristotle who said that the mark of an educated mind is the ability to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it. Now, how do you entertain a thought except by putting it out in the open? So, Unacademy's founders themselves have been very political in their social media tweets.
Yeah.
If you want a country to only praise the supreme leader, or only say that our Vishwaguru status is supreme as long as we go on one path alone, then you are not really living in a free country, are you? Are you living up to what Tagore said, where the mind is without fear? We are not.
Let me take this to Professor Mahajan, and I think you make an interesting point about the promoters in this particular case being very sort of open fans of the government, and therefore, how does that same promoter then make the argument to leave politics out of the newsroom? I beg your pardon, Freudian slip, not newsroom, but classroom. I only know newsrooms. Ashwani Mahajanji, let me bring you in. Here's my question to you. You know, typically a person you may disagree with in any organization, if an owner or a head or a boss disagrees with with their partner, their colleague, their employee, you have a conversation. You say, acha, I don't really think this fits with our code of conduct, please don't do it again. You don't actually terminate the person. That's in the edutech Unacademy case. In Ashoka University, of course, the debate is very different. There many people have disagreed with the paper that was written by Professor Das. But once again, if academics cannot debate, disagree, argue among themselves, without a free environment to do so, why will anyone enter the teaching space? So I want your take on both of these controversies.
See, being an academician, a
Yes.
person from academics, I am always a supporter of, the free debate by the academicians. And uh, uh, being a teacher of Delhi University, I have always been debating on different issues with different governments, not just one type of government, the different colors of the government. So. On the outside, I would say that this is very important. Academicians must discuss, must debate, and they are the only people those who can really debate. Okay. Now, about these two controversies which you are talking about, uh, this is an issue between their employee, their associates, and the university or the institution. So. They have to settle uh, amongst themselves. So I don't see any reason to comment on that, because if you assume that he's asking to vote for somebody, he's asking to vote not for somebody. So I don't think there is any reason for it, because mostly the uneducated, there's a huge number of politicians those who are uneducated, and they should feel the heat. uh, so why should the present dispensation should worry about this? Because
So do you disagree with the termination? Do you disagree with the termination, being a teacher yourself?
this is yeah this is between the institution and the associate. So I don't think there is any role of any political dispensation on this issue.
I think that's an interesting point. And I want Sanjay's response to this. Rahul Ishwar, welcome to the broadcast. Before I go on to Dr. Ruchika Sharma. Sanjay Hegde, you spoke about, does the government only want praise for the supreme leader? You hear Ashwani Mahajan. On odd occasions, the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, while otherwise being affiliated to the BJP, has very openly criticized certain economic policies of the government, foreign policy decisions of the government. And he says, being a teacher, I think it's between the organization and the person. And I think that's fair. Why is it not between the organization and the employee? Why are you, for example, bringing support for Modi or criticism for the prime minister into this?
No, I'm not speaking of any one personality. I'm
Okay.
speaking of the idea of education itself. Now, if you are going to say that you will not touch upon anything that will get the institution into trouble with the government, because the government has an overarching interest in everybody who opposes it, then you are not really asking for a free and fair dissemination of educational thought or education itself. You might as well be teaching in North Korea, for where you have to have adherence to one school of thought alone. The essence of education is the ability to have ideas which may not necessarily be mainstream. They could be in the political field, they could be in any other field. I gave that example on social media about
Yeah.
uh, about Galileo being brought before the Pope and being made to recant, saying no, the sun, the Earth doesn't move around the sun. It is the sun that the Earth is at the center of the universe, and the sun moves around it. And even as he recanted before the Pope, he said, but still it moves somewhere inside. So we do not need fresh Galileos. The, uh, uh, there was a great passage in Dr. Ambedkar where he said that the history of human thought is made by people who can speak to the in the face of the pontiff himself and insist that he is not infallible. He was referencing his own fights with Gandhi. So
Yes. I
there,
get I get what you're saying. I think the point is, why is this happening, right? How have we reached a point where somebody's, so you and I both think it's an innocuous opinion expressed by Karan Sangwan. Ruchika, these are often opinions expressed in the sort of upper middle class drawing rooms of Delhi. If only we had netas who were only educated, let's vote only for the educated. And this is very complex because two states in India actually tried to introduce a mandatory educational qualification at the panchayat level elections, and this was, a lot of people at that time felt that this was a completely elitist idea. So I'm not right now getting into whether the idea is good, the idea is bad. I am getting, or whether Professor Sabyasachi Das's paper was correct or not. I don't know. Economists would be better placed to debate his paper. My point is, why are we at a stage of resignations and terminations, and what does that do to you and Professor Mahajan, who are both teachers and professors? Ruchika?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, Barkha. Because the topic today is academic freedom, I'd like to sort of start with defining what really academic freedom means. There are two very important things that academic freedom allows an academic to do. One is the ability to hold scholarly opinions, which basically means that if I have an expertise on a particular subject, like say I do on history and somebody says Sabyasachi Das has on economics, he can take a very informed opinion on it. Almost all kinds of academic work is premised on this, that I have a scholarly opinion. So I will put out a paper like Sabyasachi Das did, of his economics, and he has his statistics correct, which does not mean that you cannot debate a scholarly opinion, you cannot criticize it, you could certainly criticize it. But to penalize him for this is a very different idea altogether. The other idea of academic freedom also extends to the fact that a teacher also has the liberty to express opinions on subjects he's not an expert on. Because at the end of the day, teaching is a humane job. And as human beings, I will have many sorts of opinions, most of which I should be allowed to express in the classroom. That does not mean that my opinions cannot be debated or criticized. That is the whole idea of expressing opinions. In fact, the idea of education is to allow students, teachers, anybody who's involved in the process of education is to form opinions. So if sort of remove the idea of opinion, like the person who was sacked in the academy thing, and his employer saying we don't allow personal opinions, well then I don't think there can be any teaching if you don't allow personal opinions. The whole idea of teaching is that it's a humane job, and as human beings we will have opinions. And this person again has a very scholarly opinion. He's teaching law. He studied whatever kind of law he studied. You and I can debate whether his opinion is correct or not, but that does not
Yeah.
mean that you sack him for having scholarly opinions. Similarly for Sabyasachi Das, right? The other idea, of course, is it just between the employer and the person? I would think not. I would think many organizations do feel the pressure, and I think the pressure does come from the political dispensation. What this person called, Sangwan, I don't know his entire name, has said is
Karan Sangwan.
absolutely
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Karan Sangwan. It's actually very innocuous. Like you said, this is a living room conversation that people have, and
Yeah.
they sort of throw this opinion around. To be sacked for something like this seems like an overreach. Because this isn't an opinion which is in any way something that is not completely unheard of, or something that will hurt like many sentiments, so on and so forth. So there is
Okay.
clearly this something more at work over here, which sort of force an academy to sort of
Let me push this further. It is reported that he made this comment. This is Mr. Sangwan on educated politicians in the context, Sanjay, this will interest you, of discussing the new IPC draft. Now, some might say that if he was criticizing the present government, Rahul Ishwar, and clubbed that with you should have only educated politicians, then it goes from being a general opinion to a comment on politics. And I would still say, Rahul, that the promoter, his boss, or whoever can call him and say, you know what, our code of conduct doesn't allow you to bring your personal politics, whatever they may be, your electoral politics, into your classroom. Do not do this again. Does he need to be sacked, and what sort of message does that send to everybody else? Rahul?
Barkhaji, every text or every spoken word has a context and a subtext. We all know this particular Unacademy teacher was mixing politics, if I am allowed to use that, mixing his political opinion with scholarly teaching. And the other thing was raising, the other paper was raising the question of our election integrity, to borrow a word from US terminology. So political partisanship and raising questions on election integrity is a serious thing. Let me just flip the argument. I am a right winger. If in my class in an academy I am injecting topics on Goreksha or say Veera Savarkar or any of the right wing ideologies, would it that invite some kind of an outcry from our liberal friends? Wouldn't they say I am mixing my politics or religion with the classroom stuff? Similarly, every wing, we may have our own politics. We can definitely discuss those in our living room. But when you come to a place of eminence, of non-partisanship, shouldn't we have a much more of a
But let me argue this from the other side. He didn't say, this particular teacher, he lawyer teacher, he didn't say vote for BJP, vote for Congress, vote for AAP. He just said, vote for an educated politician, and he represents an education organization. Rahul?
Absolutely, yes. But the context is very important, right? The context and the meaning that he implied was such and such havocs is being created. I have read the exact dialogue that he said. Havocs they have created. Right now, these people meaning BJP, is creating all these problems. Next time, vote for somebody else. Isn't that the meaning? For example, if I am in Kerala, I am ruled by CPM and Sri Pinarayi Vijayan, Comrade Pinarayi Vijayan. If I am implying I am being in a state something like North Korea, won't I be equating Sri Pinarayi Vijayan with Kim Jong-un? So let's be honest about it. This is about political partisanship. This is raising questions on election integrity. That research paper is much more contentious one because it is raising serious questions on our election integrity. It is raising serious questions on many so-called closely contested seats.
Okay.
So
I can
somebody
I can see Ruchika's hand go up. Before we come to Professor Mahajan and I come back to the others, I just want to play out what Mr. Sangwan said that started this whole controversy. Today, he's released a new statement, but let's go back to what he actually said. Let's listen it.
मुझे भी ऐसा ही लग रहा था मैं रोऊं या हंसूं क्योंकि मेरे पास भी बहुत सारे मेरे बैरक्स हैं, बहुत सारे केस नोट्स हैं, बहुत सारे नोट्स हमने भी बनाए थे. ठीक है, हर किसी के लिए बहुत मेहनत है, आप लोगों को भी काम मिल गया. लेकिन एक चीज याद रखना, अगली बार जब भी अपना वोट दो, किसी पढ़े लिखे इंसान को अपना वोट देना ताकि ये सब कुछ दोबारा जीवन में ना झेलना पड़े. ठीक है, चलो ठीक है, नेक्स्ट टाइम ध्यान रखिएगा, ऐसे इंसान को चुने जो पढ़ा लिखा हो. ठीक है, जो समझ सके चीजों को. सिर्फ ऐसे इंसान को ना चुने जिनको सिर्फ बदलना आता हो, नाम चेंज करना आता हो, है ना. तो मेक योर डिसीजन प्रॉपरली, है ना.
Okay, now let's be fair, Sanjay Hegde. The end of that comment did seem like a political comment. Let's be fair. The beginning seemed like a general comment on, right? On let's vote for educated politicians. Though he did not name any politician, in the end he said जिनको बदलना हो, जिनको सिर्फ चीजें बदलनी आती हो, ध्यान से वोट दीजिएगा. So it seems a political exhortation, right? And he was doing it in the context of discussing recent bills passed by this government. So while you're wanting to disagree, go ahead, Sanjay.
No, no, no.
Well, not
I
passed.
was.
Sorry. Yes,
Uh,
yes, not passed, but proposed by this government. I'm making a lot of mistakes today. Okay, Sanjay. Yes.
yes, and any lawyer
Hmm.
would have possibly said much more. This
Arey, but he's not in
no,
court.
no,
He's
no,
in a
no, no, no,
classroom.
no. Forget this. What is he saying? That this is an incompetent government which has bought this kind of mishmash of bills, which has
Yes.
actually thrown aboard a lot of work that the country has worked at for the last 70 odd years. We have the courts interpreting this legislation, and suddenly something radical has been brought in. So please exercise your mind the next time that you vote. Your vote has consequences. That
Mhm.
is what he's saying. And please take care to vote for good people next time. Now, if you think that is politic, it's like if the hat fits, please wear it. Who, who,
Okay.
who is to tell the BJP that look, no, 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 you're all correct people. You have degrees in entire political science. You know all politics,
Okay.
and therefore you are the be all and know all of all knowledge, and you
I mean,
have total control in this country.
I would be also uncomfortable if his comments had ended with the Prime Minister has done so much to lift India. Please vote for people like him. I think the way I want to frame this, Professor Ashwani Mahajan, is how do you leave your electoral preference out of the classroom, and should you be required to do it? Right, that is the debate. That should you be required to do it, and how do you do it?
In fact, all this, whatever has happened is really laughable. Uh, he was just talking like Arvind Kejriwal, without really going into the details of actually what the government has done, what government has not done, and just saying that like unpad hai, we uneducated hai. I asked you one question, and I'll ask the panel as well. What do you think? These literate people, all literate people, those who don't have any, there is no dearth of degrees with them. But are they really educated? I have seen many politicians, and irrespective of the parties. Therefore, is making such sweeping statements anywhere is not something which is welcome. But again, I've already said this. I've already heard this video earlier. I've already said this, that let academicians say whatever they want to say, and I had been saying, you remember about my RCEP tirade against the decision of the government, and ultimately we won. No, you see, and there are many others. So academicians have a role to play, but I think this role must be played in an academic manner. It's and writing articles and going into the debates. That is something really great. So we must distinguish between these two cases. One, that of Ashoka University, when a professor had written an article, and the other where these comments have come just by the way.
Right. That's an interesting thing that the two cases are very different. Before I come back to Rahul, Ruchika, you were wanting to come in. And do you see the two cases as very different? Ruchika? Can we unmute Ruchika, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at all. I would actually think both are cases of both people expressing their scholarly opinions. I was wanting to sort of come in because I think what Sangwan has said is clearly a case of his scholarly opinion. He's not just a lawyer, he's a teacher of law as well. And he thinks that, if people were to vote. So, for example, I'm a teacher of history, and I say have studied the institution of marriage throughout history, and I have an opinion that marriage is a extremely patriarchal institution. And I'm in a classroom, and I say that women should be very cautious while entering into any marriage. Now this is a perfectly scholarly opinion of mine, because I have facts that can back up the fact that XYZ institution is patriarchal, and therefore I can
Hmm.
put this out as a caution to my students. Am I going to be fired for that? So that
Yeah.
is itself a very big question. Are we not allowing scholarly opinions anymore? I don't think it was a sweeping statement at all. I think it was a scholarly opinion. You may disagree with opinions, and all opinions, no matter how high and mighty they are, must be criticized. But that does not mean that he gets fired. Same for Sabyasachi. He of course has an entire paper. But just because this person is going on YouTube and expressing an opinion, and that person is writing a paper, does it make a difference? No, they're both experts in their fields, and accordingly, passing their expertise and a comment which is related to that expertise. I
Okay,
would
so you
uh,
actually think, Ruchika, in the end when he says, in this case, Mr. Sangwan, in the end when he says कि अब ध्यान देना कि सिर्फ नाम बदलने से राजनीति नहीं होती, I'm paraphrasing him. You don't think that's a political exhortation?
even if it's a political exaltation, why is politics something which needs to be devoid of law? I would think law and politics have always been
But
together.
then isn't
You
it a
can bring
slippery
in
slope? What if it were reverse? What if Rahul, I think that's the point you wanted to make. Rahul Ishwar, can we get Rahul Ishwar up, please? Yeah, Rahul, go ahead. One second, Sanjay. Rahul,
Barkha,
yeah.
yeah, Barkhaji, as you know, and I know I respect you as a feminist, but I'm an anti-feminist. If I'm taking a session and if I'm abusing or bad-mouthing feminist, if I'm bad-mouthing
Yeah.
feminism, I'll never use the word. But like some of my right-wing friends says, it is feminazism. Many people use that. See, I wouldn't be expressing a scholarly opinion. I cannot take something like a cover saying that this is my freedom of expression. I'm just expressing. Ashwani ji earlier said, he's speaking like Kejriwal. He can definitely do that in your show, but I'm absolutely sure he won't do that when he's taking a session. I think Mr. Karan speaks really well. You should invite him for your show where he can definitely express your opinion. Where there is a space for debate. In a classroom, there is very less space for debate when a teacher from the position of authority is airing an opinion which is political in the garb of being scholarly. See, the whole issue is let us keep political partisanship. Of course, there is a nation building politics, but beyond that, the political partisanship should not be in the class. Then it will be biased. Then right wingers like us can have our own institution. We can inject anything related to right wing in the guise of academic, which many people are doing. That's a different thing. But that is not the space for academics. Let at least academics be non-political and non-partisan, and that will be better for the nation. Is that not an easy proposition?
Let me take that to Sanjay Hegde. Sanjay, I think the argument that Professor Mahajan and Rahul Ishwar are making, which Ruchika is challenging, and the marriage example is a very interesting one, is that there is a context to make a point. So, for example, let's take from journalism. When you report a story, you are obliged by the rules of your profession to give all sides of a story. In the opinion pages, you can express your opinion. So there are allocated spaces, and I think Rahul Ishwar is saying that there is a time and a place. Karan Sangwan has every right to be a critic of the government, to be a critic of the new proposed legislation on a new IPC. He can write a column on it. He can express his opinion on it. But in the classroom, he shouldn't be doing that. How do you respond to that?
Well, let's talk context and let's talk in the media context.
Yeah.
They in the newsrooms, what editors say, you can report anything as long as I don't get a call from Amit Shah's office. So that's exactly the kind of context which has happened in both these educational ventures. Whether it's Unacademy or Ashoka, they say, don't say anything which will get us into trouble with the government. We need the government for our
I know,
finances
but
or anything.
governments controlling media didn't start with this government. Every government that I have seen as a journalist has wanted to. Every politician wants a pliable media, right? We agree. Every
We,
politician.
we agree. It's the degree of control. And right
Hmm.
now, there is no doubt that we have a government that which seeks to control every important field of human influence, whether it be the media or whether it be the classroom. Now to Rahul's point, that teachers should not express any opinion. You should not be political. Please go to any of the great teachers. You look at Michael Sandel's scholastic videos on YouTube, where you have to make the child think. You have to
Hmm.
make your student think. And how else do you get the student to think except by saying that this is what I think. This is what do you say in response?
Right.
and you've had responses.
But then
Similar,
I want to take that to Ashwini ji, but I have to ask you a question, Sanjay. Are you okay
yeah,
if politics that you don't concur with are also expressed in the classroom? So there could be a Jordan Peterson, for
absolutely,
example, right? There's
absolutely,
a
absolutely.
there could be a
Don't you remember that video where there was a teacher who actually called a student, a Muslim student, Osama bin Laden or something like that? And
so
what
that
happened within the classroom? See, if somebody steps
I don't
out of
find that
line,
political. I find that
uh,
discriminatory. I think we're
they,
mixing up things
but
here,
that,
right? We're
no, no,
mixing up things
that's
here.
extremely
Yeah,
political. That's extremely political,
but that
and the
is
response was political also. Now, if let's put it this way, let's take Sangwan saying, you see, all this has happened because we have decided to decolonize the Indian mind, and we have dispensed with what the Macaulay Putras brought in. Macaulay's IPC is dead. We are getting into the Amrit Kal of litigation. We have a Nyay Samhita. We have drawn on our ancient texts. Do you think
hmm.
that would not be political? Of course, it is political.
And I am saying that you and Ruchika would maybe not be comfortable with that. I don't know. Don't want to
No,
assume for both of
I mean,
you. Yeah.
I would say that would be acceptable politics, and it would be challenged in the classrooms.
Okay,
And
that's a very interesting argument that teachers should be open with their politics in the classroom and let the students negotiate back, argue, debate instead of trying to sanitize the classroom. First, Ashwani Mahajan, then Ruchika Sharma. Ashwani ji, please go ahead.
In fact, sorry to say, nobody would agree to. Many people will not agree to Sanjay ji, because I have already said that we are okay with it, and it is between the organization and the employee or the associate. There is no problem. They continue or they don't continue. The basic question which we are discussing right now is whether an academician should teach his students, because they are captive audience. So should we be making use of this captive audience for my political philosophy or my political thinking, or for my political aspirations? So these are the very important issues, and therefore we must answer that. And I'm okay with it, whether because I have myself been involved in the political and economic dispensations, economic policy dispensations, and we had been uh, talking against the government, whether this government, the other government. But and that is very important part, because only academicians can do it. But it should be scholarly act. It and it's,
So,
and
Professor Mahajan,
I fail to
listening
agree
to
with
you,
Ruchika.
listening to you, you have less of a problem with the paper that Sabyasachi wrote, because you're saying it's a paper, debate the paper. You have
Yeah,
more of a problem with what's happened in the Unacademy case. Am I right?
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
That is very
I,
important.
I
I disagree with Ruchika ji, because these are two different things, and making such sweeping statements in the classroom, which is a captive audience for yourself, and there is no dialogue between the student and the teachers. If the
yeah.
students are allowed to say something about that, then it will be the complete this thing, and then
I think you've raised a very interesting question. I want to take that to Ruchika, because Ruchika, I think what Professor Mahajan is saying is somebody made the effort to write a paper. After that, you can say, I don't agree with this paper. The research was poor. It was only 11 seats. You are biased, but it was a paper. Here, it seems like the end of the class, he's winding up, he's taking his headphones out and he's saying, Yaad rakhna, aisa vote mat dena. Right? How can you compare the two things Ashwani Mahajan raises? And I think there's some merit in his question. Go ahead and respond.
Well, the only thing that cannot be compared is the fact that academic paper, this is an exceptional academic paper that has been read by a lot of people. Most academic papers are actually not read by a lot of people. I would therefore think that the classroom is an even safer environment to voice out your opinion, because that is where you would get, using the new term, ratio. Students can disagree with you. In fact, the education system allows for something like that. In colleges, we have something called as a tutorial discussion, wherein everybody brings in their opinion. And a lot of that has to do with the current politics. A lot of that has to do with what you're studying in the classroom and how you can sort of, develop what is called as critical thinking, that whatever I'm reading in the classroom, I am forming an opinion about what is happening around me. And I am now discussing that with my peers, with my teacher, who might have a different opinion than me. I may have a different opinion, but I've developed a tolerance for, this is how also students develop a tolerance for other people's opinions. It all happens in the classroom. It cannot happen in a paper. A paper is an echo chamber. I am just talking to myself. I don't even know how many people will actually read that paper, because
Right.
academia, when it comes to just paper, can become an ivory tower thing. It's only in the classroom that I can express my opinions, also teach through this
Okay.
process to students how an
So
opinion is actually processed and made,
two
and
very differing,
possibly
interesting.
also be criticized for that opinion, and that's
I
fine.
actually I actually find both the opinions quite persuasive by both Ashwani Mahajan and Ruchika Sharma, which actually proves the point that a lot of people listening to an open debate can actually see merit sometimes in both arguments. And that is maybe, Rahul, the point that is being made, is that is what a classroom should be like. Right?
Two submissions. First of all, Sanjay ji was saying with great respect, somebody called Osama. That is outright discrimination. That is outright wrong. That is Islamophobia. We shouldn't promote it at any cost. I don't believe that can be an argument. For example, in Kerala, we had seen Kerala story and love jihad kind of thing. If some of our right-wing friends is injecting a topic saying that let us debate about love jihad law, let us debate about love jihad, it would be outrightly offensive for our Muslim brothers and sisters. That's the reason why classroom should be kept out of this purview of partisan politics. Yes, we can definitely debate Patel versus Nehru. We can definitely debate Ambedkar versus Mahatma Gandhi. That's all good, because that is more on a theoretical, intellectual, ideological, and philosophical level. But when it comes to political issue of the present day, it can create fissures. It can create animosity, antipathy. We should don't let our students into such divisive rhetoric. Definitely, the large-scale political ideology can be debate, but when it comes to Arvind Kejriwal versus Modi ji or Rahul Gandhi,
Yeah.
somebody
Leave electoral, leave current electoral politics out of the equation. Sanjay, I've got to close. Last word to you. Sanjay Hegde. Yeah.
The very act of learning, the very act of teaching is intensely political. It is only when you debate that you go forward, and it is education which provides you a ladder upwards. So if you cannot access the ladder, if you are told that no, this
Yeah.
is off bounds, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Okay. We agree to disagree on this panel. I don't think we were able to reach a consensus. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.